Level 1, the informant. You are 16 years old. You stand at the back of a village church. The year is 1478. The priest unrolls a single sheet of parchment. He reads the words of Pope Sixtus IV. A new tribunal now answers only to the crown. He calls it the Holy Office. He announces an edict of grace. Confess your own sin. Name someone else's. Both are mercy. You watch your neighbor's wife across the square. She kills a hen behind her house one evening. The blood goes into the dirt, not the pot. A candle burns behind her shuttered window every Friday. You have seen this before. You never had a word for it until now. You give the commissario a name. You give him a date. You give him what you saw behind the house. You give him no way to prove any of it. The commissario cannot read your signature. You cannot write one. He marks an X where your name should go. He writes your own name in a second ledger too. Your account might prove false. 3 nights later, soldiers take your neighbor from his bed. They take his wife too. Neither one knows your name. The denunciation stays sealed. No accuser is ever named to the accused. Their house sits empty by the following month. Their wheat field runs along your fence line. You submit a second name. This one owes you nothing. His field touches yours on the north side. You tell the commissario he skipped meat one Friday. Maybe twice. You cannot say for certain. The commissario does not ask you to be certain. He only asks you to mark the parchment again. He tells you that you have an eye for it. He asks you to come back next week. Alone. No witnesses. Level 2, the witch pricker. You're 19 years old. The commissario knows a man who hunts witches for a fee. He travels from village to village. He works for a fee, not a wage. The commissario sends you to him as an apprentice. You learn the first rule. Shave the suspect. All of it. Head, arms. Every place hair can hide a mark from your eye. The man hands you 2 tools. One bodkin has a sharp point. The other has a point that slides back into the handle at a touch. You practice the switch behind his cart. The first time, you fumble it. The blunt tip clatters into the dirt. He does not repeat the lesson twice. Your first real case is an old woman accused by 3 neighbors. You shave her scalp. You find a raised mole on her shoulder blade. You press the sharp bodkin into her forearm first. She bleeds. She cries out. You press the blunt one into the mole. No blood. No krai. The crowd gasps. You are paid £1 for the mark. £1 buys more grain than a field brings in a season. The old woman looks straight at you. She asks how you know that spot is the devil's, not just a birthmark her mother carried too. You have no answer. You have only the tool in your hand. The tool decides, not you. You prick a farmhand's wrist next. You prick a widow's shoulder blade after that. You prick a midwife accused of cursing a stillbirth. Each mark costs £1, real or not. No mark, no fee. You learn this fast. You start finding marks. You use the blunt bodkin on a widow's birthmark. It matches the size and shape of the mark on your own mother's neck. You know exactly what it is. You use it anyway. The 2 bodkins are never tested side by side. No one in the crowd ever asks for one. A stranger watches your examination from the church doorway. A small bronze cross is pinned to his coat. He waits until the crowd disperses. Then he asks your name. Level 3, the familiar. You are 22 years old. The stranger from the church doorway finds you again within the year. He offers you a place in the Holy Office as a familiar. Unpaid work. Real privilege in return. You bring your family line before a local board. 4 generations back. No Jewish blood, no Moorish blood, nothing but old Christian stock on every branch. The board approves you inside a week. You receive a small bronze badge and a ceremonial dagger. The badge marks you as a lay servant of the tribunal. The dagger marks you as one of the few commoners allowed to carry a weapon. Your work starts quietly. You note which household skips pork on a feast day. You note which family changes bed linens on a Friday, not a Saturday. You note which door stays lit after dark on a Sabbath eve. Your first written report comes back with corrections in another man's hand. Too vague, the note says. Not enough names. Not enough dates. You rewrite it twice before it is accepted. Your first raid comes at night. 4 familiars, 1 alguacil, torches wrapped in cloth to muffle the light. You kick in a door you have walked past 100 times. 3 days later, you walk a prisoner through the market at noon, chained wrist to wrist. Every stall owner watches him pass. No one watches you directly. Everyone tracks you from the corner of an eye instead. An anonymous note names your oldest friend from childhood. You do not know who wrote it. You are not permitted to ask. You arrest him at his own table, mid-meal, in front of his children. You do not ask if the note was true. Asking is not your job. Your job is the door, the chain, the walk to the cell. Villagers who once waved from across the square now cross to the other side of the street. You call it respect. You take the long way around that same street on the days you carry no badge. A notary from the regional tribunal reviews your latest reports. He tells you your memory for dates and names is sharper than most men twice your rank. He asks if you can read and write well enough for work at his desk. Level 4, the notary. You're 26 years old. The regional tribunal needs a man who writes fast and forgets nothing. You transfer into the Holy Office at Toledo, one of 24 tribunals now standing across the kingdom. You learn to write without lifting the quill. A goose feather, cut at an angle, holds ink long enough to outlast a full sentence of testimony. You learn to write the words a prisoner says, not the words you expect him to say. Your first hearing involves a man held 2 years in a cell before any qualificator reviews his file. 2 years of detention, unrecorded beyond one line in the ledger. You write down every question. You write down every answer. You write down every silence between them. Silence goes in the record too. The notary of the secreto sits inside the chamber, not outside it. You sit through your first session on the garrucha. The prisoner's shoulder gives out on the third drop. You write the sound as cried out. You do not write the word scream. The clerk before you never did either. The prisoner confesses within the hour. Your instructions are clear before you ever pick up the quill. Record it as confessionum esse verum. The confession is true, not forced by torment. You write the line. You watch the rope. You write the line anyway. You seal his house and his field the same afternoon. The Holy Office carries no budget of its own. Every maravedi it spends starts as a name on a seizure ledger. You count as 3 goats and 1 plow into the record. The tally becomes the tribunal's account. Your hand shakes some nights after the late sessions. You blame the cold. You have blamed the cold since your second week. A widow gives testimony that already matches the charge before any rope is raised. You transcribe it word for word, exactly as instructed. You know exactly what came before the words. You write them down anyway. A qualificator reviews your transcripts for a case still pending judgment. He tells you your notes read cleaner than any clerk in Toledo. He invites you to sit in on his next theological review. As an observer, for now. Level 5, the qualificator. You're 31 years old. Your theology degree earns you the title. The Holy Office promotes from its own ranks first. Your years at the notary's desk taught you every case file by heart before you ever judged one. Your first file describes a woman who speaks to a black cat by name. 3 neighbors swear to it in writing. You read it twice before you write a single note in the margin. You check her conduct against the 28 articles set at the Seville Assembly of 1484. Article by article, you rule out simple superstition. Article by article, you rule in heresy. Article by article, the woman's fate leaves your hands and enters the alguacil's. The distinction exists on paper. In practice, the paper decides who is arrested by morning. You sign the approval. An arrest follows within the week. This is the full weight of your office. 1 signature, 1 column checked, 1 life redirected. You pass the tribunal gate on your way home. Her husband and 2 children kneel at it, waiting on a hearing no one has scheduled yet. You do not stop walking. You read the week's new denunciations. 1 in 3 traces back to a boundary dispute over land. Not a word about God in any of them. You note this to yourself. You do not note it in any file. Motive is not your jurisdiction. Heresy is. A case reaches your desk with 1 witness behind it. The law requires 2, both have proven good character. Your superior wants it moved before the quarter closes. You sign it through on 1. The alguacil assigned to that case invites you to observe the interrogation yourself. You have read 100 transcripts of that room. You have never once stood inside it. Level 6, the alguacil. You're 35 years old. The tribunal moves you into the post that touches the body directly. Every rank before yours worked in paper, testimony, and judgment. Yours works in rope, water, and wood. You train on 3 instruments. The garucha lifts a prisoner by the wrists. The taka forces a cloth down the throat. The potro stretches a prisoner across a frame by cord and crank. Weights bind the ankles during the garucha. Water follows in a slow, measured stream during the taka. The potro sees the most use of the 3. You recite the required warning before every session, word for word, memorized months ago. The prisoner rarely hears it as words by the second sentence. You operate the garucha for the first time on a wool merchant accused by a rival trader. The 3rd drop dislocates his shoulder. You hear the joint give before you hear him cry out. You run the taka on a woman 2 weeks later. You count her breaths between pourings. You are trained to keep the session inside the bounds the tribunal permits. An order comes down mid-session to stop. Not for mercy. The fiscal needs the prisoner conscious enough to testify again tomorrow. You stop exactly on command. No earlier. You wash your hands in cold water after every session. You stop checking your reflection in the basin above the trough weeks ago. A prisoner passes out on the potro before the confession the fiscal wants is complete. Your orders say finish the procedure regardless. The full requirement still stands. You finish it on an unconscious man. The fiscal notices you keep prisoners lucid longer than any alguacil before you. He asks if you have ever considered the prosecutor's bench instead of the chamber floor. Level 7, the fiscal. You're 40 years old. The alguacil's question becomes a transfer within the season. You leave the chamber floor for the prosecutor's bench. Rope and water are another man's instruments now. Denunciations are yours. Files arrive by the dozen each week. Most are thin. Some are personal grudges, filed as religious complaints. You learn to judge each file the same way. Can the tribunal make it stand in open court? That question matters more than what actually happened behind a shuttered window. A defendant's own witnesses testify in his favor. The law calls them abonos. You cross-examine each one for a debt unpaid, a grudge, a reputation for drink. Takaz, the same law calls that. Both words sit inside one statute. Both exist to let you dismantle a defense the tribunal never meant to accept. One file reaches you with a single denunciation behind it. No second witness supports it. The qualificator has already signed it through. Your task is not to question his signature. Your task is not to question one witness instead of 2. Your task is to make it hold in open court. At the hearing, the defendant asks 3 times for the name of his accuser. 3 times you decline. The law protects the denouncer, absolutely. It does this even for a man fighting for his life on the strength of that denouncer's word alone. You in a case the regional inquisitor notices personally. A family's land and stores are seized the same week as the verdict. The proceeds enter a ledger. That ledger funds the tribunal's entire operation. The Holy Office has never had a treasury of its own. It has only ever had this one. A witness in a separate case changes his account twice in a single sitting. Each version serves your prosecution better than the last. You know a rehearsed story when you hear it recited twice. You let the second version stand in the record anyway. It serves the case. The case is what you exist to serve. A sealed letter arrives from the regional council. Not a summons. An invitation, private, to sit among men who never appear before the public bench at all. Level 8, the Inquisitor. You are 45 years old. The regional seat opens. The council fills it with you. You are one of 2 Inquisitors assigned to this tribunal. The network now spans 24 holy offices across the kingdom. A university degree in law or theology sits behind every man who holds this chair. Most hold it 2 years before they move on or move up. Your first sentence is not death. A woman convicted of minor superstition receives public penance instead. She was a San Benito to Mass every Sunday for a year. Her name is read aloud each time. You learn that mercy in this office is a category on a chart, not a feeling. Your first auto-da-fe follows within the season. The condemned, where Sambonitos marked with flames for those sentenced to burn. You decide who recants in time to be garrote before the fire. You decide who burns without that mercy. You decide whose grave gets opened for a judgment that arrives after death. A rope around the throat is the only mercy this ceremony offers. You're the one who signs off on who receives it. A case brings you exactly that last decision. A man already 2 years dead stands accused, denounced by a relative settling an old grudge. You order the grave opened. You order the remains burned at the next auto-da-fe regardless. The tribunal's judgment does not end at a man's last breath. A report crosses your desk from a sister tribunal. 14 autos-da-fe in a single year. 42 burned. Over 100 more sentenced to prison, the lash, or public penance. You read the numbers without slowing down. Numbers like this stopped making you flinch years ago. A prisoner refuses to recant to the last minute of his sentencing. Procedure is exact on this point. Green would burn slower than dry. His silence enters the record. The statute leaves you no other option. You give the order for Greenwood. A summons arrives from Madrid. The council that sits above every tribunal in the kingdom wants you seated among them. Level 9, the Grand Inquisitor. You're 63 years old. The king nominates you. Rome confirms it. Rome must confirm every man who holds this office. You now stand above all 24 tribunals in the kingdom. You answer only to the council you yourself preside over, the Suprema. You called this network into being one seat at a time. It began as a single tribunal in Seville. Under your 15 years at its head, it becomes 24 holy offices. It reaches into every province the crown claims. You convene the General Assembly that sets the rules every tribunal below you now follows without exception. You sign the decree that expels tens of thousands from the kingdom within the year. Their property is forfeit. Their return is punishable by death. You are told the number runs somewhere between 40 and 100,000 people. No one beneath you keeps a more exact count than that. A tally reaches your desk from your own 15 years in this chair. Thousands executed under tribunals answering to you. Tens of thousands penanced. Tens of thousands flogged. Tens of thousands more ruined by confiscation alone. You did not request this tally. It still arrives on schedule. The king and queen who appointed you right to roam themselves. The letter is not in your defense. It is a complaint. The sums flowing into the Holy Office's coffers have grown large. They alarm even the monarchs who built this office. Rome's answer is not your removal. It is 4 assistant inquisitors. They arrive to manage a man judged too old and too frail to be trusted with the office alone. You retire to a monastery of your own founding. Your body has started failing before your authority ever did. You eat plainly. You sleep on plain linen. You have denied yourself comfort for years. You no longer notice its absence. From a window of that monastery, near the end, you watch a boy cross the courtyard below. He leans toward the resident priest. He lowers his voice to a whisper. You cannot hear the words from this height. You do not need to. You said the same words yourself 47 years ago in a village church. That man could not even write your name correctly in his ledger. The boy points once toward a house at the edge of the courtyard. The cycle continues.